Why did that one kid get expelled? Here's one. A girl got intoxicated at a house party. Some guy messed with her hair and took photos of it, as well as a few photos of her and unconscious. The girl's boyfriend went all John Wick on the guy when he got emailed the photos by the guy. He was sent away for harming the crap out of him, who wasn't even given detention, and the girl's photos got sent around for years and people called her a witch. Terrible school. Expelled for harming the dude on his own time? That's like the cherry on top of the crap sundae that the entire situation is. Story 2. He just kept crapping his pants. There was nothing wrong with him, he just kept doing it. Same place, same time, every day, right after recess. When we lined up to go inside, he'd just let loose. The fattest fart you'd ever heard, and it would echo through the silent hallway for literally everyone in the grade to hear. At first we thought it was just embarrassing for him, but by the time week 2 came around, we were all convinced he was doing it intentionally. I have no explanation because he was kicked out after like 3 months of consistently doing it. He would announce to everyone he crapped himself too by saying, and I quote, "Whoops, I poofed myself." Story 3. Happened in kindergarten. There was a kid named Dexter who had severe anger issues. Every day, a small group of kids would get certain jobs to do around the classroom, such as line leader, table cleaner, etc. Dexter got the table cleaner position, and he was absolutely livid since he wanted to be the line leader. What started off as a screaming fit escalated into him throwing scissors around the class, biting the teacher's hand, shattering a window with his flying scissors, breaking the tank that housed the class gerbils, and just trashing the entire classroom. The rest of the students had to evacuate the class while the teacher and principal attempted to restrain him. Security had to get involved. Never saw him again after that day. Story 4. Walked out of English class to talk to another kid in the hall. The teacher was real lax, so she didn't care he walked out to talk to this guy. Fight breaks out in the hall, teacher runs out, other teachers come to help break up the fight. One teacher asked the kid that walked out of class while they were fighting, and he said he stole my grass. Kid who left class was selling, and the kid in the hall tried to walk off without paying. Any other BS excuse would have just gotten him suspended. Story 5. Middle school, he was really into Assassin's Creed, video game, and main character is an assassin. He also seemed like a slightly depressed/edgy kid. I became friends with him during his last 2 to 3 weeks. He told me he wanted to make a cool blade thing that shoots out of his sleeve like in the video game. I told him that would be cool, but I was never dumb enough to do it myself. He actually made it and brought it to school. We spent a couple of days of recess and lunch running around, and I watched him scare some of the kids, including myself. I never thought he'd harm anyone, though. Someone must have told on him. School supervisor guy came in, asked for him and his backpack, and he never came back. I think I saw him a few years later, and he thought I was the one that told on him. I tried to deny it, but didn't want to risk getting into an argument. Story 6. Guy grew up doing Muay Thai, boxing, and wrestling. Forgot where he was during a wrestling match and threw a spinning back fist that knocked his opponent clean out. He was completely mortified once he realized what he did. Straight A student, star athlete, and genuinely good guy. The class president even addressed it and organized protests and walkouts until he was reinstated. Even the guy that got knocked out and his parents forgave him and supported us. He did get reinstated but wasn't allowed to wrestle or box anymore. Not sure what the coaches pulled to allow him to play football. He eventually quit football his senior year and was never really the same. Story 7. He made a serious threat online. Most of the school skipped out the day he did because they didn't want to get hurt up. I was one of the poor souls with no social media, so I came into school not knowing there was a frickin' threat. I also had a mom who was unfazed and just told me, "You'll be fine, go to class," when I called her. I didn't learn until the next day that he had been apprehended and expelled. What scared me was I knew him for years and he never seemed like the kind of person to go that far. He was a class clown, but I never thought he would take that as even a joke. Apparently, he did have a bomb, but it thankfully never made it to the school grounds. Story 8. He started a fire in some backpacks. This was in elementary school like 91, 92-ish, and we were in like 2nd grade. After that, no one was allowed to go into the hall unattended. Backpacks were in a weird corridor in the hallway outside the pod of classrooms. Another one was the only male cheerleader hurt someone so bad for making fun of him being a cheerleader. The fight was huge, interrupted all the classes, and hundreds of students watched this cheerleader in uniform just pummel this other guy. They ended up outside the school in the middle of the street. Several teachers had to step in and stop the fight. I believe the cheerleader would have ended the kid if someone didn't intervene. Story 9. This is one of my favorite stories. Setting, high school in a rural area many years ago. We were seniors. I'm in welding class one day, and I overheard a couple of kids talking at one of the welding stations, both with concrete on 3 sides, open top, and a curtain behind you. I hear them talking about welding an object to the metal welding table. Of course, I'm curious, so I peek around the corner and see they are both looking at a spray bottle of pressurized Axe body spray. I immediately realize this will go poorly, being a pressurized and flammable substance, so I butt in and say that's a bad idea. Both these idiots cut me off and tell me to screw off. I played football against them in their rival high school, and we never got along super well. So I said, whatever, F you guys too, and walked across the room where I can see the teacher and their booth and made myself look busy while watching these clowns. Sure enough, I didn't think they'd actually do it. I see the curtain shut, spark, and boom. Flames shot out of the top about 10 feet, and this idiot came bursting out of the booth like a character in a cartoon, hair back up and singed soot all over his face and a big look of shock on his face. Teacher was red-faced and yelled at this idiot for a solid 5 minutes and stormed out with both of these guys. Last I heard, they were expelled from that school. I will never forget that smell, axe, and burnt hair. Story 10. Shelley was a girl in my sister's grade when we were in high school. It was a very strict Christian school. Shelley and Chris got caught kissing on campus. They got expelled, and all of us in junior high and high school had to congregate for a student assembly so Chris and Shelley could each publicly apologize in a speech to all of us for kissing on campus. Years later, there was understandably a state of upset among other students as two teachers were caught French kissing on campus while others kept walking around them. And nothing bad happened to the teachers. Rules for the kids, but the adults did not have to follow the same rules. Story 11. The guy was intelligent and was overall a nice kid and a good student when I first met him. He got in with the popular crowd who were a bunch of degenerate users. Watched him slowly fall down that slope from junior high to high school where he would just smoke all day and skip classes. Experimenting with harder substances, he ended up hurting a kid so bad the kid got serious injuries, got expelled for that. My mother is a nurse and looked after him a few times. He was in and out of the hospital for substance and alcohol misuse. Not sure if he turned his life around or if he is gone, but I'm hoping he cleaned up his act and has found his peace. Story 12. My neighbor across the street was 3 years older, practically a god to us. He was a very funny guy who was also a very good drummer. One day, in the spring of his senior year, he decided to pull a fire alarm at school. That was it. He was expelled. He eventually got a GED, but this was when they were starting out, so it took a couple of years. The last I heard, he had been briefly married and divorced and was working as a cashier at the local store and was living in his mother's basement. Story 13. I went to a really small rural school, 300 students from K to 12 small. I started there in second grade, and we were always a tight-knit class. We had some kids come and go over the years, but the majority of the people I graduated with were also second-grade classmates. In junior high, we had a kid come in. We'll call him Danny. He was a total schmuck, and he basically fractured our class from one cohesive group into cliques. He and a couple otherwise good kids basically became the school oppressors. It was bad enough that we had many substitute teachers quit after having our class. Somehow they were always just careful enough to not cross a line to get into too much trouble. Our senior year, my class planned to take a weekend trip to a semi-local amusement park as our senior sneak trip. During the senior year, Danny and his posse were worse than ever, to the point that many of us were not going to go on the senior trip, despite working our butts off doing car washes and other fundraisers from junior high on in order to fund the trip. A few weeks before the trip, Danny and one of the others from his clique did something and got expelled. I don't know the full details, but it had something to do with the cruelty against our school counselor. It was an overnight change in the dynamics of our class. It was like the cliques disappeared. Even the other Danny followers that were left changed their attitudes and were nice to everyone again. We all went on the trip and had a great time. Graduation came and went. We had a PTA-sponsored overnight graduation party. Then after that was over, we all went and had a party at a nearby lake. I don't know what it was with Danny, but it was like an old cartoon where he was the bad guy that put a town under a spell. And once the superhero kicked his bum, the whole town went back to normal. I wouldn't have believed something like that was possible had I not seen it myself. I don't know what happened to him, despite the things he did to me and my friends, both directly and indirectly. I do wish him well. I hope that was a wake-up call and he turned his life around and made something of it. I think it's more likely he ended up in prison though, but I have no idea. Story 14. In middle school, this girl did nothing but start fights. The last I saw her, she was being taken, alone, on a full-size school bus to who knows where. As the bus drove off, she squeezed herself halfway out of a window, screaming at everyone that she'd harm us. Another kid in high school got expelled after bringing brass knuckles to attack some other kid. When confronted by the school officer, he tried to act like the brass knuckles were a decoration for his lanyard. Story 15. Elementary school. Dude was suspended for a good month and came into the class with the vice principal as she carried a few sheets with her. I could only imagine separate work. When they came in, Vice Principal asked if he was ready to join us again. He responded by whacking the papers out of her hands and onto the floor, running down the hall. Never saw him again. Middle school, dude was just a little obnoxious throughout the year, but nothing major from what I saw. Then one day, out of the blue, the whole school was required to change their passwords as the guy got a hold of a teacher's password and logged into a computer as them to change his grades. High school, no expulsions, but some of the crap that went down with some folks should have led them to being expelled. Story 16. He was a junior or senior in high school who got sent to Choices, which is basically in-school suspension. He didn't like the school Choices officer because he got sent there a lot. So one day, he decided to light the Choices officer's personal truck on fire in the school parking lot, and it kind of exploded. Yeah, he was expelled and sent to jail. He became a meme that spread through the school like wildfire. A pic of his face with the caption, "Don't like your teacher? Just blow their freaking truck up," and crap like that. People in the school got in trouble when the faculty would figure out who was sending the memes. This was back in like 2016. Story 17. She was a senior and he was a junior at a private high school. They got caught making a grass transaction on campus. She had to finish her senior year at the local public school. He was out for the rest of the year and was allowed to return his senior year to graduate. I don't know what happened to her, but I know he had some additional grass issues and was living in Canada waiting out the statute of limitations for a few years after college. He's back around now, though. Story 18. A kid in my class got into an argument with a girl at lunch. They were about 11 and the girl started smacking him. He lost his temper, then did a quick flurry of punches and a kick. The girl left crying. The next day at our school, out in our local street, all the kids were having lunch and saw an older kid walking past me towards the kid who hit the girl. Turns out it was her older brother from the high school up the road who came for some payback. The older kid got the younger one into a headlock and started punching him. The younger kid struggles but manages to get out of the headlock and run into a local store. The kid hid in there for a while before I think his parents picked him up. Next thing we know, rumor had already spread that the older kid got expelled from his high school. Story 19. So this was in 5th grade. This kid was like bad. Like he was involved with substances. This is pure speculation. But I do remember he used to bring small bags with quote-unquote grass. It could have been just oregano, but I don't know. Talking back to teachers, like not mumbling under his breath, but full-on verbal fights with the teachers. Never did his work. His parents couldn't even control him. The event that did it was him fighting with one of the male teachers after sending him out of the class for talking crap to one of the students. He refused to leave, and when the teacher tried to call security, the kid started punching him. Like not soft hitting like what some kids would do if they threw tantrums, but full-blown punches. This kid wasn't very big for a 5th grader, but he could pack a punch. The teacher wasn't very built either. He was maybe 5'10", slimish build, and this is just to my best memory. Anyway, it took like 3 staff and a security guard to pry this kid off the teacher, and by then, all of the kids, including myself, cradled in the corner. The kid got expelled, and the teacher quit, I believe. I'm not really sure. We didn't see him for a good 2 months, mid-school year. I heard from gossip among the teachers, bad kid broke something on his body. He came back to finish the semester, and after that, quit. Though I was already heading to 6th grade, so I'm not sure. My sister is a year under me, said she never saw that guy again. Story 20. It was me. It's 2002, and I'm in geometry class, and the teacher, who was a total tool and schmuck, gave us a surprise exam. I didn't want to do it, so what did? I get on one of the class's PCs and send his PC a pop-up message from the command prompt saying, "Hey, you should look under your car." This already in hindsight was a bad idea, but combine that with me being in a foreign country, in an American army base, now you've upgraded to nuclear bad idea. EOD, SWAT, and military police were called and closed the school down. I got ratted out by the class as Chu Manuts is the only one that would know how to do that. 22 years later, I work in IT, making 6 figures, so I guess it was meant to be. Story 21. For just one, it would be a chick who has been causing problems since 7th grade. It got worse our junior year, 11th grade, 2006. First, she made false claims that upperclassmen essayed her on the bus on the way to school. Well, I think she forgot about the cameras. The administration looked at them, and he was in the very front of the bus the entire way. Well, she got an out-of-school suspension for 2 weeks. She hasn't even been back a week when she threatened one of our classmates who we had grown up with since kindergarten. All because she didn't like the classmate's religion. That got her expelled before the final bell rang. I do have a couple other classmates that got expelled, those in middle school. Story 22. I was almost expelled for a year for something I didn't do. Zero tolerance policies don't do crap. I was 2 weeks away from the end of my junior year. I've been pestered by the senior all semester. That day, he asks me if I'm going to end myself. I tell him no, I'll end you. The frickin' teacher overheard that and turned me in. I get in trouble. That mother trucker gets to graduate with a stupid band letter jacket. He gets away scot-free, and I have to go to coincide. Story 23. I was friends with him. He had two nearly identical backpacks, one for school, the other for crap we'd drag out into the woods to mess around with. He took the wrong bag to school on one of our random search days where the cops would bring the dogs to school, and got caught halfway through the second period. Honestly, when I got the news, I was kind of shocked that he got expelled for that, not because I didn't think the offense was expellable, but because he'd mentioned bringing fireworks to school and setting them off at the amphitheater during lunch. No ill intent, he was just dumb and liked explosives. Story 24. I was that kid, and I was actually expelled 3 times. The first was reduced to or reversed after 2 weeks. The second and third both required school board hearings. First one, I set a table on fire. I told them it was an accident, that I was making sure my lighter worked before I went to the bathroom to smoke, and didn't see the rubber cement on the table. In reality, it was a compulsive thing that I saw myself doing but had no power to stop. Second time, one of my teachers confiscated my Discman and refused to give it back at the end of the day. I flipped out on her in front of her last class of the day and threatened to find out where she lived and burned her house down. The third time, I was already suspended, and a friend of mine had gotten jumped by a group of kids from the next school district over. Stupid skater rivalry. We coordinated the rides to take basically all of our entire friends group to find them after school and get them back. I showed up at school with a concealed aluminum bat hidden in my pants. Security saw me, knew that I was suspended, and when they stopped me and realized I had a concealed weapon, the police were called. I still have no idea how they let me into school after all that, or how I made it to my 40s without a real criminal record, but I did. Story 25. One guy got expelled for calling students parents and pretending to be the dean, saying that their child was telling everyone parent X or Y had cancer. He did this to several people. One guy, when cycling past the junior department, shouted, "Get cancer," which was heard by a teacher who had cancer. There were several students expelled for excessive fighting. One guy hurt his ex-girlfriend. She too was expelled because she hurt his new girlfriend. 2 girls got expelled because they brought brass knuckles and knives to school to fight each other, which they did at the top of a very busy staircase. For this one, I was actually present. The teachers who separated them sighed and looked like it was just another Tuesday. A local supermarket had opened and celebrated by giving out slices of apple pie. They were subsequently thrown in a food fight, and someone took it personally, so of course things escalated fast. One guy hit another dude with his moped because the other guy had crashed the first guy's previous moped. Several kids thought it'd be funny to throw eggs at the school building after hours. One night, some of the people got spiked and decided to climb the school building, falling from the second floor. None of them called emergency services for half an hour. The guy who fell turned out fine in the end but was expelled. And that's just the ones I know about. And if you've got any to share in the comments below, please do so, because if you're enjoying the video, remember to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos just like this. Story 26. I've been expelled not once, but twice. The first time was in early middle school. I taped a letter to the bathroom wall, making serious threats and a desperate cry for attention. I had no intention or ability to act on this threat. I just wanted to stir up crap in a school of people I didn't like and who I thought didn't like me. I was a really troubled kid. I would get in trouble at school a lot and had trouble controlling my bladder, which led to deep-seated embarrassment. Not 1 year after that, I was expelled again in a different state for threatening some kids in a shop class with a piece of metal. No one got hurt, but I did get arrested and charged at 13. It was a long road to get back into a quote-unquote normal school situation from there, but I eventually did. I'm doing a lot better now. A lot of time has passed since then, and I look back on what I did as a kid with a lot of guilt and regret. But I also feel like a completely different person now. Thanks to medication, therapy, and support from my family, I do have a happy life now. Story 27. Almost myself, but I got away just in the nick of time. So back in my high school days, I made a lot of money selling grass, and it wasn't some 40 or 50 bucks. We're talking like 500, 600 a week. This was in the late 90s, 1999 grad, and school was far different then and wasn't so locked down. So my usual routine would be I would make my rounds before school and jump in different people's cars and get rid of this or that. My one rule was, if you say you want it, you better buy it before school when I made my rounds. So this dude, who I didn't really like, but is one of my friends' best friends because they grew up on the same street BS, he hits me up on my pager the night before. Yes, I had a pager, and tells me he wants an ounce of the good. Okay, no big deal. We're talking the middies people. Those that know the middies. So I tell him my rule for maybe the 50th time because he is an idiot. Fast forward to the next morning. When I got up, I just felt weird and had a bad feeling about the day. I'm a Pisces and it's kind of weird, but sometimes I can see the future. Other Pisces know. So I go to school, make my rounds, and all of a sudden I start looking around and he's nowhere to be found. T-minus 5 minutes till school starts. I didn't drive and I'm pretty sure my mom dropped me off. So as I'm asking around, someone comes up and I hear, Billy got in a wreck this morning. Panic starts to set in. So I am left with a choice. Option 1, carry this around all day or put it in my locker. Big risk, people get busted all the time. Option 2, throw it away and lose a bunch of money, maybe $100, such a stupid idiot back then. So being a greedy piece of crap, I choose option 1 because I was invincible, blah, blah, blah. But when I got in, I put it in my locker. So I sit down in the first hour and notice the teacher has this really odd look on her face. As I'm analyzing this and time literally slows down, I turn my head and see the SWAT team walking down the hallway past our classroom with probably like 5 dogs. I literally almost passed out and crapped myself at the same time. The principal gets on the intercom and says there have been reports of a lot of substance use going on in the parking lots and within these walls. We will be searching every person's locker. You are not allowed to leave at any time and bathroom breaks are not permitted. So think about this. They're systematically going through every locker and my locker would have been either the first or last one just based on how they were doing it. So as we're sitting there, the principal would get on the intercom and say, Joe Smith, you need to come to my office, and humiliates a person, like I said, different times, because old Joe forgot he had substances in there. So I had to sit there the entire hour ready to jump out of my skin. Now it gets interesting. So they obviously wouldn't let people go back to their lockers. So I'm left with another choice, await my fate, or try and get past these cops, SWAT team, I mind you, to my locker, grab the crap, run out of the building without anyone noticing, and run home through the woods, missing all of school and then calling parents and getting a 7-day in-school suspension for it. How I got around the cops to my locker was out of some Mission Impossible moves. I don't really remember and kind of blacked out, honestly, but I made it. I literally grabbed the stuff, tiptoed to the back doors, and usually there are security officers and personnel, and today, no one was there. Why? Because of the cops, they were all inside. I got home enriched probably 10 times from the adrenaline rush. Story 28. We had IDs we had to wear around our necks at school. I hated wearing them and always forgot it at home. The principal warned me almost every day at lunch when he passed by getting his food. I got tired of it, so I made a fake school ID with a big middle finger as the image. The next day, he warned me again, and I pulled it out and put on the fake ID right in front of him. He took me to the office and wanted the phone number to call my parents. I gave him Domino's Pizza's number instead, and when they answered, I told him he owed me lunch since he ruined mine by being a schmuck. I was expelled, but I didn't care because it was the end of my senior year and I wasn't graduating anyway. I was eventually allowed to attend summer school at a different school in the district and finish to get my diploma, but I wasn't allowed to attend any ceremony. I was kind of a piece of crap kid back in the day, but when I got to college, I straightened out and actually finished with a 3.6 GPA in the end and on the honor roll, LOL. That's why I think schooling should happen later in life. Story 29. Just being a dummy. This kid was already in detention, which at our public junior high prison was a fenced-in area of the blacktop. I kid you not, the assistant VP had this spot for the really, really bad kids, and a 20-foot square spot on the blacktop next to the field where the fuel cylinders and maintenance access crap was, like a zoo cage. Well, the assistant principal had like 1,500 delinquents to monitor and threaten at any given moment, so it wasn't uncommon for the habitually malfeasant to be padlocked in this gated community. This was like 1992, so it's all totally fine. This kid, gonna call him Jimmy, no reason, just like it when Redditors make up names and say they are. A lot easier to just make up a name and not say you did. So Jimmy is short and fat, but his homie Raekwon is tall as heck. They're locked in the cell at lunchtime as usual. Assistant principal hasn't been seen in hours, per usual. So Jimmy, who's the real delinquent of the pair, he hatched a scheme that Raekwon can push Jimmy's fat bum over this fence, at which point Jimmy would be free and would return with grass for him and Raekwon to smoke across a chain link fence. We're all like 13, 14, this can't fail. People of a certain lost generation will remember skater shorts and a thick steel chain wallet clip was a look favored by malcontents of the grunge era. So Raekwon, who's a big dude, gets Jimmy up on the fence, janky operation as it was. From the outside, I was quite sure they were going to topple the mesh fence, but it had a horizontal pole at the top, so it just bulged and Jimmy got up, probably 8 feet max. Now Jimmy has a little dance to do. Can he swing the other leg over or maybe just get both feet on this narrow bar and jump down on 2 feet? Answer was neither. Turned his head too quick to talk to Raekwon, lost his balance and just fell back into solitary from like 8 feet up. The kicker being his giant hardware store chain caught a post on the way down, ripped his pants so bad you couldn't even call them pants anymore. And he was hurt, bad if I remember. Wind knocked him out, definitely. But both him and Raekwon were the first to put her hurting on snitches, so the rest of us just averted our gaze and pretended we didn't see crap. It's been 30 years, right? Statute ran on this, I'm snitching. Jimmy got himself up and ambulatory before the assistant principal made it back. Pants had a vent flap from the knee to his hip. He was just messed up. Assistant principal gets back and he's heated. Why the heck did you wrap this chain around the fence post? He's looking at the situation, trying to make sense of what the heck he's looking at. Must have landed on these two dummies who were trying to rappel out of this prison by steel chain with a coin purse as a grappling hook. Anyway, made the assistant principal look bad. All of us kids saw what happened and snitched immediately, like all kids do. And word of mouth must have gone back to school because that was the end of the prison camp detention facility. I assume for months Jimmy was just recuperating in a hospital somewhere, but one day I ran into Raekwon in the hallway. Nope, Jimmy got expelled. Now he just hangs around outside the fence waiting for people to come smoke with him. Assistant principal even you just made that angry shrug scowl and let it be. Story 30. Because I harmed a girl with a metal lunch chair. Some backstory, I was pestered horrifically from like 6th to 11th grade. Knives in my coat with a note, "You're next," carried out in my chair by jocks. We don't want freaks in our study hall. Clothes stolen almost twice a week, not exaggerating, from gym, and no one but my parents tried to help me. My boyfriend passed away in a car accident. When I came back to school, a girl in a grade younger said, "You should have been in the car with him." I snapped. I grabbed a book under her lunch tray, flipped her lunch on her, smacked her in the face with the book, knocking her onto the floor. Then I grabbed the chair. 2 teachers, the only 2 semi-decent ones in the school, were on lunch duty and watched. It felt like an hour of me hitting her, but it was maybe a minute before they said, "That's enough." I grabbed my things from my locker and walked home. No charges filed. My parents told the school after my shrink talked to them that they would sue me for being expelled. The school let me finish after hours with a teacher one-on-one for the remainder of the year. My senior year, I did homeschool. I'm not proud of what I did. It was the early 90s and schools thought pestering was fine and normal. I truly couldn't take another moment of it, and after what she said about my boyfriend passing away, I felt like I was backed into a corner with nowhere to go. Story 31. There was this time a kid got expelled at my school. This boy had a lot of issues with teachers and other students, including me. He threw so many tantrums all the time, pushing it to the point that the class had to be moved around to another classroom because teachers couldn't get him to leave. Teachers don't have power to do much than speak, so all they did was talk polite to him in hopes he'd listen. This time, he'd take it too far, and this was what ended up in him getting expelled. We were in class listening to a presentation, and he started shouting things I don't remember now. But long story short, it was a hot summer day, and the girl next to me had an ice water bottle. He picked it up and threw it at her head, and she was okay, but got a concussion. Next, he looked at me and kicked me in the shin of my leg, only leaving a purple bruise. Never heard of his name again once he left. Story 32. I myself got expelled. Not super proud of how I was when I was younger, a little schmuck. But hey ho, I have some funny memories. Almost a million different things I did. I think the straw that broke the camel's back was a time I stole one of the basketball-sized tennis balls from the sports hall and walked the halls of my school, a 100-year-old Edwardian building. I found a class of year 7s and opened the door to throw it at one of the kids, but it turns out one of the teaching assistants was really small and was wearing a black blazer similar to my school uniform. I proceeded to doink the ball as hard as possible off her head and then ran for my life. I knew the corridor was really long and there was no way I would get down the hall before the teachers came out to see who it was. So I grabbed a fire extinguisher, turned to face the way I came, and sprayed clouds back towards the class whilst running backwards so they couldn't see my face. I'm 99% sure I would have gotten away with it, but as I reached the far end of the hall, I ran backwards into a kid in a wheelchair who was doing a school tour with not only the head teacher but his parents too. I went flying, the wheelchair tipped backwards, and it's safe to say they didn't pick that school. And I was promptly expelled for tipping a kid out of a wheelchair accidentally, and vandalism with a fire extinguisher. To be fair, this isn't even the stupidest stuff I did in school. I grew up a lot shortly after school and wouldn't even dream of doing some of the stuff I did back then now. Story 33. So my old elementary school used to be a high school, so they made half of it an elementary school and the other half an administration building for the entire school district. In 5th grade, a classmate got the amazing idea to take a crap like a foot away from the administration building outside with no cover, and he took a leaf, picked up the crap, and wiped it on a window of the building. The best part is he was caught on a security camera, and he ended up getting expelled from the entire school district, which is a fairly large district. Story 34. I got expelled when I was in 8th grade middle school, so to preface this, our district just changed areas of which kids would go to which school. Where I live was pretty ghetto, and the area was called Greens Point, nicknamed Gunpoint. This is relevant. We were now going to a school where more well-off kids were going. I started dating this chick who I thought was pretty chill considering her background. She didn't judge me or my friend group, and we got along with hers. Our humor was a bit darker than theirs since we'd seen some crap growing up. One day, we were talking about how many fights broke out and how there used to not be so many the year before. One of her friends straight up blamed it on all the kids from my area and how we didn't fit in. This triggered me and a lot of my friends. We exchanged words until he mentioned, "If I catch any of them in my neighborhood, I'll get my 22. So I clapped back and said, "You really want to threaten people from Greenspoint? I wouldn't be surprised if one of us brought a gun and used it on you." I knew he was blowing smoke, but honestly, it wouldn't have been the first time one of the people in my neighborhood brought a weapon to school. So my girlfriend took this as me threatening this other kid and told the administration I was making a serious threat towards the school. She said I had targets listed and everything. When I got called up to the principal's office a few days later with my dad waiting, they said I told them I was personally going to bring a gun and supposedly they saw the list I made. No matter how much I pleaded that we were threatened and that I didn't personally make a comment saying I was going to bring a weapon, they didn't listen to me. I asked them to show me the list so I could prove it wasn't in my handwriting. They didn't care. So I was expelled and sent to a school called Compass for kids who constantly got in fights, known gang members, or were caught with substances. To this day, I don't know why she said what she said. The school was predominantly white. My neighborhood was a good mix of Mexican and black people. I chalked it up to racism and didn't let it bother me as I was used to this kind of treatment by this age by more well-off white people. My only regret is not punching that dude in the mouth. Story 35. I was that one kid. I was selling candy for $1 a pack and had a pretty lucrative business given I was buying in bulk at 52 cents. First time around, I was suspended for a week. The second time when I came back, I was expelled. If anyone tells you our school system incentivizes entrepreneurship, I always like to bring this up. The positives were that the profits bought my first car. Also, my admissions essay was really well liked and got me into college, so I'll take it. Story 36. Had a girl in a band who I saw every day for uniforms and braided her hair on Fridays because she was in guard, and I had a few girls assigned to me for hair and makeup. She got expelled for doing substances at school when she started having a seizure and went into a coma on the way back from the bathroom during math class. A lot of people did substances at my high school because the soccer team was full of dealers, but she got a bad batch. But she was still in a coma by the time her suspension was up. Came out of it and thought we were best friends for some reason and asked me to braid her hair. I just went with it until her friends convinced her we only knew each other from the band. We had a casket surrounded with "Say No to Substances" posters in our cafeteria for the rest of the year. Story 37. His name was Patty. He was transferred from another school after getting expelled. He lasted a week before getting expelled from mine. He covered the girls' bathroom with toilet paper and lit it on fire and caused an evacuation of the school. This was after like 20 other incidents over the span of a week. This was the incident where my school told him, "Nope, not dealing with this anymore." We were fourth graders. My only real memory with him was when we were at recess and we were playing football. He quit playing and lit up a cigarette and started chasing people around, hurting people with it. Teachers monitoring recess were chasing him around, trying to control him. Recess ended and we all went inside while he stayed outside, making the teachers chase him. I wish I knew his last name. I'd love to see where he ended up. Never seen a kid so troubled in my life. Dude did so much bad crap within the span of a week, from the cigarette burning to threatening teachers to starting fights at lunch and starting the bathroom on fire. He wore a white tee every day to school and he couldn't read. I also remember hearing he had very wealthy parents. He hit every school on the North Shore of Chicago, not an area known for troubled youth. Story 28. There was this kid who brought a shoebox to high school and I have no idea why. Anyways, he had some electrical wires in it, I guess, and had accidentally left it in the men's restroom. As he was walking out, another student was walking in and freaked out because the box looked suspicious and had some wires sticking out. Kid called our resource officer. That officer was scared to open the box, called the bomb squad, and the whole school got shut down. I'm telling you, things escalated so fast and he was expelled and sent to juvenile hall. But what's worse was in juvie, they made the kids wear certain colored t-shirts which are associated with your crime. They gave him the orange jumper, I guess, which means like mass ender or something. And so the entire time he was there, no one wanted to talk to him or deal with him and he didn't know why. So he was isolated for a long time until they could give him the right colored shirt. Anyways, it was just sad. He was about to join the varsity football team and had a girlfriend and was like a normal guy. And I believe with no intent to do something harmful to the school. But again, concerns about school safety were rising at the time, and I would say ensuring the children's safety was handled professionally. Handling this kid's case was handled poorly. And if any of these stories got to you, here's more for you. YouTube thinks you're going to love this. I'll catch you in that video.